Right, welcome to Cloud Experts Unleashed. Today, we are going to be talking about CF Summit East, a little recap of what happened last week. So we have some great guests with us this week. We have Dakota Clum, our tried and true amazing CTO here at xByte Cloud. He joins us a lot. We also have Mark Takata, the senior technical evangelist from Adobe ColdFusion, joining us. And if anyone who watched the previous video, he has fancied up his background, so he looks all cool, even to the point where you guys don't realize this because you weren't in our pre-show. He had to change out his glasses because he had green glasses on and they were like 1D. So welcome everybody, welcome. So let's talk CF Summit East. We just finished that up last week. Came off of that amazing event with partners Carosoft out there. They've treated everybody amazing. I was telling these guys a story a second ago where I asked about a cold soda, and all of a sudden one of their people ran out and grabbed me one. It was just like Mark's drinking right now, just like that. Within a second, I had one in my hand. So it was pretty amazing, and they have a great hospitable group. Couldn't be more impressed with what they offered. But for you guys have been to a couple others in the past. How did this one, and Mark, I guess we'll start with you. How did this one compare to CF Summit East of the past?
The thing I keep coming back to is the vibe. The vibe at this one was just so much more interactive. There were people coming up, asking questions, being much more interactive with each other, asking a lot of really deep, insightful questions at all of the different speaker events. And I don't know, it might have just been that the space we were in was more intimate. It just really facilitated people meeting in the hall, saying, oh, hey, let's chat, let's do this. Like, I spent pretty much the entire time in conversations end to end, which was great. That was really a wonderful feeling. It felt like people were networking and getting to know each other a little bit more than the previous year. Not to say that the previous year was bad in any way. It just felt more professional with a capital P. Like everyone there was in their suits, and they sat down, they did the thing, they watched the speakers, and then they left. They didn't have that same level of, I don't want to say friendliness because that makes the other one sound unfriendly, but it was kind of like that, which was really nice to see at a summit like this, because often a lot of the people that are going to this are not ones who are going to talk to each other, right? They're in government, they're in kind of potentially top secret or higher things. It's not a non-silo environment. They're not sharing stuff, generally speaking. So here we did see that, and that was refreshing to see, and I think it's really good for the community.
Now, Dakota, you've spoken at the Vegas ColdFusion Summit. You've spoken at Summit East. From a speaker's perspective, how did the two compare?
Yeah, I think the audience was roughly the same between Vegas Summit and East Coast Summit. I think the community that arrived and just the feedback and questions that were asked they were really well thought out. I would say they were about the same. I don't know if that's a good thing or great thing, but I think we're great. So
yeah, it is. It's interesting because this one kind of came across, at least in the beginning, as being the government-focused conference compared to Vegas, which is kind of open to everyone. But Mark, you and I were talking before we started recording that it didn't necessarily come to fruition that it was pure government. We had a good mix of people. Can you comment some was that intentional? Did Adobe try and do that, or did it just kind of happen?
It kind of happened. There was still, don't get me wrong, a really wide range of government there. It was still probably 70% government. Like, it was still a high amount. But what I saw was both people in government that were like contractors for the government were more likely to show up at this one, and then like government adjacent companies were much more likely to come to this one. And it was very good. I mean, I don't know if that was part of the reason for the vibe being a little bit more interactive with people, that there were maybe folks that felt more comfortable talking to other folks because, they weren't under some sort of government NDA or anything like that. But yeah, we didn't necessarily intend it. I think the other thing that we've seen, just from metrics that we've gotten from different places, is we're seeing a lowering in the average age of people who are doing ColdFusion. Not that we're dying off. More people are coming on who are younger, and that drove more folks here who were interested in working with government. That was a good chunk of the folks there. People who had government as one of their major customers was also a major part of this. Like there were private companies who generated invoices or like PDF documents and things like that, offered their services to government, were also there. So it was still government focused, and of course the talks that we were doing were very government focused. But yeah, we did see a wider variety and range than we had the year before. We had more people also total, and I find it's really cool that Dakota said that he felt okay, like the audiences were similar between Vegas and here, because that's awesome. Like Vegas has way more people, and to have that like intensity of crowd and to have that interactivity of the crowd here is not something I think we've seen before. Vegas is Vegas, right? People are there, people are partying, people are willing to do whatever. They're much more likely to ask questions and get interactive and talk to you about it. And I think that's a good thing. To see that come to DC, I think is a step in the right direction. And I think we're seeing that evolution of this community towards more openness, which I think, again, is a good thing.
Okay. Now, Dakota, I'll bounce to you for a second. Yeah. You got to see some of the sessions out there. Got to listen to a couple of them. I know you kept me at the booth the whole time, slave driver. I guess that's my responsibility. But anyway, and you also saw some of the presentations at Vegas. Did you happen to have a favorite one that was new that you got to see, or that any trick that jumped out at you as something that I know you're a master of your craft, but anything in particular that may have jumped out at you as something that was very interesting that you saw someone present about?
I think one that really stood out to me and is something that's going to be more common that we talk about is CF migrations, which is one that Charlie Arhart did, one of the first ones. As ColdFusion or Adobe looks to offer more major versions in a more frequent pattern, I think upgrades or migrations are going to be a more common discussion. So just hearing, the tips and tricks that Charlie was able to bring forward to the community, I think offered a lot of insight, and I think got a lot of people thinking about, okay, how do I move my legacy application to the new CF 2023 or whatever comes next? So I thought that was super insightful.
Yeah. Before I jump to Mark on the same question, I'll say from my perspective, I got to hear some of Nolan's, and that was I like to hear some of the push to make the designs better. I think one of the things that I've seen in the ColdFusion community, that the actual website design can use some freshness to it. So kind of encouraging people to do that was good. I know Mark won't say Sharvies because he's on the inside. He already has this. He already knows the inside scoop about so it's nothing new for him to see. But I like kind of seeing where Adobe ColdFusion's headed in the coming releases. Yeah. But Mark, how about you? You got to see a couple of these between conversations.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was doing a lot of, back channel chats in the hallways and in the vendor area and stuff. So it was a little bit difficult for me to catch full presentations. I'm going to cheat. I have three that I really enjoyed that I got a chance to see. So the first one is Dakota's. That was great. And I love the interactivity that I saw in there, people asking questions. I mean, like, that was not necessarily an easy topic. Like, that's a fairly advanced topic for people to be that interactive in. That tells me that they really want to upskill their ColdFusion game, and that's awesome to see. The second one is actually Sharvies. So you say that I have the inside scoop. There were about three things in Sharvies' presentation that I had never seen before. Because it's moving so quickly. We've got so many things. she had actually worked with one of the engineers the night before, after the party. So before the party, I helped her with a little bit of her presentation. I went to the party, and then I think I hung out with Charlie until 1 a.m. that night, just hanging out. That day, she brought new stuff that I had never seen, especially the reporting, not the reporting, the chart customization stuff I'd never seen. And I was, if there's video, I guess there's not video, but you would have seen me pointing and talking to the senior product director, going, "How cool is that?" And he was like, "Oh yeah, that's super cool." Like neither of us had seen it. Like they had just, basically
hot off the press
before. And the last one I want to shout out to, because it was so good, was Pete Freitag from Foundio. That was such a, like, Git is kind of a scary subject for a lot of people, and to come into a situation like this and just really try and get people to come out of their shells and say, shells, sorry, that was a little joke. They're PowerShells, and really just start to leverage Git for what it's good for, especially in concert with his security tools, like he was teaching them, was next level. There were a lot of like scared faces in that crowd. I'll cop to that, but I think people really learned, and at least a few of them, I think, are ready to take that next step and stop copy paste to server deployments and all that terrifyingly awful things that some folks are still doing to this day to their production servers. I think Pete really gave them some of the tools to get past that. So yeah, I love all of my speakers.
Yeah, I think any of these languages that have been around a while, you're going to have some of that what's the word? The technology, the word is technology debt, the tech debt. I mean, your JavaScripts, your PHPs, your Adobe ColdFusion, any of these languages that have been around, you'll see some of these the apps and coders who still use old techniques. So it's good to see a lot of the push between all the presenters to kind of push, okay, hey, here's what you can do. You can get into the most current ways of doing things.
Definitely. Yeah, unless you use a brand new technology like Python. Sorry.
Brand new, yeah.
Python's 2 years older than ColdFusion. I love that.
So
I also want to throw a little I was going to shout out to my good friend Brian Sappe for his amazing keynote portion on getting folks in line to move past legacy coding practices and onto modern patterns. I think that was a lot of people don't want to hear that. That was brave, I think, in some ways, to go up there and just kind of throw a little tough love at people, but I think it's really necessary. I'm so happy that he went up there and talked about that, because he and his group, wherever he happens to be working, currently he's working at Semify, but every group that he's come into has always upskilled and pushed the bleeding edge of technology with ColdFusion at the head of it. And I think, when he says this, hopefully people listen and people start thinking about how they can really make themselves a more modern developer while continuing to code in ColdFusion. I think that's really important.
Now, what's also amazing about that Semify group is the number of people they brought with them and put them through the training, the certification the day before. So yes, they're really serious about kind of their commitment to Adobe, and kind of making, and as you said, upskilling all of their team, and getting them all certified. I believe they all passed their certification.
They did.
So
they did. Although I will say they have their CTO is the instructor. So they've had many months of private instruction. Obviously, like he's there. He's obviously not official or whatever. But I mean, when your CTO is the person who's going to be teaching the class, like you've already you've already learned a lot of the techniques and the object-oriented practices that he's going to be, teaching about. So, plus, I think he said they had to walk back to North Carolina if they didn't pass. So.
I was going to say that's a lot of stress if your CTO is so involved and now all of a sudden you don't pass.
Right. And it is a hard test. It's a very hard test. I did also want to sort of bring out, I don't know if you were going to talk about some of the things that were announced, but in relation to the certification, we did announce that we are putting out a certificate program. Now that's different than a certification. The certificate program is free and includes all of the videos that are used in the certification. So for free, you will be able to, as a developer, go and experience the same instructional content as you would in a day's training and get a certificate of completion that you can show your boss to say, hey, look, I'm serious about upskilling. I'm doing this. I'm preparing for my certification, perhaps. And then when you're ready, you can pay the money to actually take the proctored certification or join us at one of our events and go through a day's training to refresh and then take it and pass. So now, I think that was really important.
Is this the first year you guys did the certification at Summit East?
No, last year was.
Last year was okay.
Yeah, last year was the first.
How'd the crowd compare?
So the crowd was about 75% of last year. I think we got a lot of the people that wanted to get their certs done last year. And then this year, I think we had 35 last year, and I think we had 28 this year, or something like that.
Okay.
Still a pretty good crowd.
Yeah.
Not bad, but not anything like Vegas. I mean, Vegas, we filled 2 rooms chock full, as you well know, since you were in one of them.
I was there
last year, and this year I expect probably to have 3. Primarily because
3 rooms, not 3 people, right?
That's right. It's the 3 of us taking the test this year. Like, sorry guys, they won't let me take the test. No, like 3 rooms. So approximately that would be 120-ish. I'm just sort of spitballing. That's my feeling. For a couple of reasons. One, CF is growing. There's more interest in it, more people are wanting to come into that space, and that's a great way to kickstart your learning. But also, I don't know if this is public yet, but YOLO. We're updating the certification by Vegas. Don't hold me to that because it's a lot of work, but we're trying very, 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 very hard to get that done so that when people come to Vegas, they will be able to take the new test that has things from 2018, 2021, 2023. I think, well, maybe there was stuff from 2018 because when this certification was made, right? Our favorite year.
2022 or 2020?
2020. In February of 2020,
Ooh.
Myself, Dave Ferguson, and Nolan were all in the cafeteria at a Napa hotel with the team from Adobe and from this certification creation company, and we sat there for 2 days and blasted out that certification, and then COVID hit.
And you wouldn't be in a cafeteria anymore for a while.
Ew. No, so that was crazy. That we were all together, everything was totally normal in February, and then boom. So
you're talking about announcements, Mark. Is there anything from Sharvies you want to kind of highlight for people? I mean, there were changes to some automatic chart changes that were pretty impressive. They'll do some of the charting. Anything you want to kind of give out to the audience as some of your favorite takeaways from things that are being added?
Yeah, I think my favorite things that are coming in CF Next, the next version, honestly, the bug fixes, there's 6,000 bug fixes that are getting put in. Wow. And I literally over 6,000 are going into that our engineering team has been just cranking through the tickets and fixing, long-standing bugs plus bugs that came out, recently, things that we found internally. Like they have really, really been burning the midnight oil to get those bugs fixed. So it is looking like the next version of ColdFusion is probably going to be one of the most stable, best, like fixed up things. Just that alone would be worth.
Now that will not be 2024, correct? Did I hear that correctly? That
Correct.
With all that going into it, they will not make a 2024 release.
Yeah. So Vivek, the senior product director, sort of covered this. Like in the past, what our actual flow had been was 2 to 2.5 years. That was sort of where we landed based on, what was our availability and bandwidth and all that. We had hoped to drop that to 1 year. But it was just a little bit too much of a lift to do that in one cycle. Like we tried, and we cut a lot out. Like we probably cut about a year out of a 2.5 year cycle, but that's still more than a year. And so it's looking like it'll be CF 2025. That's not an official name yet. We don't have legal rights to call it that, so we just call it CF Next. But we are targeting a very early Q1 release in 2025, which is nice because that's always been sort of a complaint that people are like, oh, you call it 2023, but it launched in 2023 and a half.
Yeah.
What's with that, right? But if you kind of look at the cycle, like we've cut a lot out of it, and we're continuing to find efficiencies. There were things that came up that unfortunately aren't visible to end users that we've had to deal with that have really eaten into our time. That just it makes the product better, but it's nothing exciting. It just makes the product work better internally at Adobe as a product, and we've just had to, do that. Because we had no choice.
I'll say that. I mean, I've been in the software space for 20 years, in being a product manager for a large portion of that, and it is hard to get users to be okay with doing that type of updates. I remember putting out polls to customers and saying, okay, you guys tell us you want this fixed, or you want a new reporting engine added to the software. Okay, we can do that. It'll make you creating your custom reports easier, or fixing these bugs easier, or we can add this shiny new feature. No, shiny feature. Every single time it's shiny feature. So kudos to Adobe for taking that time to say, you know what, we're going to take this release and we're going to do a lot of, an impressive number of new features in Sharpie's presentation, but a lot of
there's lots of sexy stuff too. There is. From me though, as a longtime developer, like shiny features are cool. Don't get me wrong, I like them. They're fun. But give me the choice between that and fixing a bunch of long-standing bugs. I'll take the bugs fixed every single time. Like it makes it easier for me to push to production on Friday. Because I know stuff is more stable and it's working and it's more efficient. We're also working on improving performance. That was a big push this year. We're just finding places to, and CF is pretty highly optimized for being as backwards compatible as it is. It's easy to make something fast if you break everyone's stuff.
Right.
But if you want code from CF9 to still run in CF 2025, there are some difficulties with that. And so, our team is finding those little places where we can make things compile faster, start up faster, especially in containers. That was a really big thing. Containerization is a big focus for us. We're trying to make it easier to push into containers, to have observability in containers, to edit in containers, all of the things. So they need to start up fast too. some
All right,
awesome
Dakota,
ones.
I'm gonna kind of catch Dakota off guard. As
Sure.
Mark was talking, I had a great question. I figured I'd kind of pose to Dakota. So Dakota, you've been in the cold fusion space for a long time. Is there a bug that you have Mark right here, his ear? Is there a bug that's been bugging you that one of your biggest fans needs to fix or needs to push to get fixed? Is there something in particular that jumps out to you?
I would say, given our hands-on experience deploying environments, I will pass along kudos to Mark and team at Adobe. There's not an issue that I have observed in several environments. No one particular issue. Compared to past experiences and
Are you
earlier
saying they each have their own issue, which is a lot of them?
Oh, that's very possible, right? So, no, I would say it was more common in previous versions to run into a bug that was widespread or had a larger impact. And I see that a lot less, even starting in 2018, but, more so in 2021 and 2023. So, nothing that comes to mind, and that's probably a good thing. So,
I should have given him more time
I'll
to think.
email you right after this, Mark, with some.
Yeah, exactly. Schedule a call with Dakota.
He was like, Ryan, why would you call me out like this on a recording? I just felt inspired. But yeah, there's always areas to work. Mark, so Dakota's kind of tight-lipped on his things. He doesn't want to call you out on anything on not live but recorded. Is there a bug that was on your list that you're excited to see got squashed, or on the hit list? And maybe you can't say because it's not released yet.
Yeah, I can't really. There's a number of them that I was like clapping when I saw that they had been fixed, but until it's actually like live, I can't really announce it. However, you won't have to wait for very long, because I'm happy to announce that very, very soon we will be opening the alpha for ColdFusion Next to folks that are in our pre-release program. So we've got a whole lot of folks that are in there. If you and your company are not in the pre-release program yet and are current ColdFusion customers and would like to be there, please do send me an email, and I would be happy to get you and your team in there. Essentially, the alpha is designed to give a very early look to a lot of the bug fixes, as well as several of the new additions that we're doing to some of our libraries. And it's very wide-ranging. The amount of different places that we will need help from people is vast. So it will be very good. Those bug fixes, every single one of them are in alpha. So at that point, we will actually release a piece of documentation that lists out every single bug that has been repaired, so that folks that have their favorite bugs can go and find the one and see if it got fixed. Pretty high likelihood that it does.
We should do a live event where we read through the bugs and people can like respond with emojis as like their favorite bugs get announced. Things start like whatever the
little claps.
Yeah, the prayer hands or something, or that I've also been told are high five. So to kind of to blow your mind that emoji can be either one, a high five or prayer, however you want to take it.
Yeah, it's so funny. I've always sort of had it with like, when you thank, like when I thank people, sometimes I just sort of put, do that. I don't think of it as like prayer hands or high five. This just like thank you, which I guess is what that's from.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's always what I think of. And then someone was like, yeah, it's a high five. And I'm like, oh, okay. Thank you. Cool. High five.
All right, Dakota,
so that'll be exciting.
I'm going to go to you for 1 second. Then Mark, I'm going to come in and ask about for anyone who attended this Summit East, why should they attend Vegas Summit? And Dakota, I will any last words for you about kind of your impressions from this Summit East?
Again, I think it comes back to just the community factor. Adobe ColdFusion's always had a strong community. Everyone, has contributed to the community in different ways through, frameworks or blogs or just documentation. Seeing all of that come together in one place, whether it be at East Summit or the Vegas Summit, I think it was really inspiring for ColdFusion. So we got to see that in person, just in Vegas a couple weeks ago here, and getting to see it again in Vegas will be exciting. And I encourage everyone to attend. So
yeah, I will say I did see familiar faces at both events. So it wasn't just from sponsors or people who are speaking. It was just attendees. I saw that I recognized. So that was exciting to see that, hey, there's some of these people that they're getting enough good content that they want to show up to another one and kind of see what's going on in the community. So that was great to see. So Mark, last words. So we have an audience who attended the CF Summit East and so they're thinking to themselves, okay, hey, I just attended a conference 5 months later. Why should I go to Vegas?
All right. I'll give you a good metaphor. So CF East is like having Thanksgiving dinner with your fiance's parents. It's a little bit controlled. You still have fun. You still learn things, but it's a little bit more of a Thai event type of thing. Vegas is like having dinner at Primus's house. With Primus. It's definitely a little bit more open. And if the East is a trial version, Vegas is the full-blown product. We have 4 tracks going simultaneously over 2 days, a huge party on a rooftop. We've got a full day certification, same as we do back East, but we're probably going to have 2 or 3 times the amount of people there. It's definitely a more full-fat version of the ColdFusion experience, like more flavor, more content, more people, more excitement, more fun. It's the place that I suggest people go to if they want to see the community at full yell. Like what is this community really capable of when it comes to passion and excitement over ColdFusion? You go to Vegas. CF East was great, and I saw some of that, but it was still a little bit more professional, more quiet. Vegas folks kind of go a little more unfiltered.
Now, will beta be out by Vegas?
Our plan is to announce the beta at Vegas, and it should open fairly soon after that. I wanted to be able to open beta at Vegas. I don't think we will be able to do that. It depends a little bit on how alpha goes. If we have a ton of feedback that results in us having to go back through and churn, then it definitely won't make it. If we feel like we nailed it and people are enjoying it, loving it, there's a few things there, then the potential exists for us to open up beta to more people and get more people in. There is not going to be a full go download this and try it out beta until probably early next year, just before, like, we'll probably do like a gold master type of thing for people to try out. If you want to use it, you got to be part of the pre-release, just because we're trying to limit the number of places that our engineers go to for feedback.
Yeah.
Because right now they're just like ping-ponging. They were ping-ponging back and forth between Slack and the forums and whatever. So there's actually a dedicated forums for the pre-release that our engineers go to all the time and talk to people inside of. So, but yeah, even if that doesn't launch there, we will talk a little bit about it and what will be in it to get people excited.
Now, did you say that was there a public page to sign up for pre-release, or you just say, hey, email you and
Email me.
okay,
Yeah, there's no current way to get in, just to get in. And we did that a little bit on purpose, just to sort of limit, like I want to know who's in there, because I want to make sure that the people who are in there are actually there to contribute and to use the product and give us feedback and all that. You do get the occasional trolls and kind of random folks. And it also, we want the people in there to be the people who are using ColdFusion like actively, because otherwise it makes it extremely difficult for them to test new features, especially. Like, they'll have nothing to compare it to. If they want to try out ColdFusion, they can totally download the developer and trial edition today of 2023 and try it out that way. But this stuff is a little bit more work.
Okay. Now, for those we're actually, I think we're going to end up turning this one into an actual true podcast. We're just audio as well. But for anyone who's watching the video, we'll include your email address in the video content, so that people can get that. For anybody who's just listening, Mark, what is your email address if they want to reach out?
Sure, it's Ryan Brown. No, I'm kidding. It's Takata at Adobe, Takata at adobe.com.
Okay. And we will make sure we protect your email address as well. We will spell it out with at adobe.com, so any of the crawlers can't crawl and spam you.
Oh, I get spam. Don't worry, we've got a really good anti-spam.
All right, well, everybody, thank you for watching / listening to our recap. Any final words, Mark, Dakota?
I think I'm okay. Thank you, Ryan.
No, we covered a lot. Thanks for inviting me. It's been great hanging out with Dakota and you. Yeah,
anytime. The invitation's always open. So thank you, audience, for listening. Hope you got some great information about it. If you want to learn anything about the upcoming summits, you can look at a lot of the advertising out already by Adobe. They're pushing out there. You can reach out to Mark directly. You give your email address. He's also, I know he's available on the Adobe ColdFusion Slack community. He's on the Facebook group. He's out there on LinkedIn. So along with both me and Dakota, we are there as well. If you want to reach out to either of us, you can reach out to us. If you want our email addresses, it's just firstname.last at xbytecloud.com. But everybody, thank you again for joining us, and we will see you again next time. Bye, guys.